Launching a dinghy by yourself can be tricky. We'll look at how to get on and off the water with onshore, cross-shore and offshore winds, a few ideas to help us get in and out easily, what to do with your launching trolley and how to tie your boat up. A cross-shore wind is when the wind is blowing along the length of a beach or side to side as you look out onto the water. These conditions are ideal because it's as easy to sail out as it is to sail back in. Let's take a closer look. Before we launch, we should think about the wind direction and our no-go zone. This will help us to make a plan to get in and out. Our no-go zone is always relative to the boat. Here, the red triangle shows where we can't sail, and the rest of the circle in green is where we can sail. Pointing a boat across the wind here would be an easy point of sail to get moving and will take us into deeper water the most quickly. Firstly, we need to launch the boat. The boat is going into the water at an angle so that the sail does not power up. It's flapping the whole time. Before floating a boat off a trolley, turn the trolley so that it's head to wind or even pointing out to the water. This makes it much easier to be able to get hold of the boat and the trolley in different hands. You can then steer the trolley back up the beach, pushing the wheels first so that you get the trolley almost fully out of the water. This is important so that you're not leaving a hidden danger to other beach users. Pulling some slack out of the main sheet will prevent it catching on the rear corner. Holding the boat near the bow will keep it pointing into the wind and under control. Make sure there are no tangles with a tiller before pushing the boat in the right direction and jumping in. If you haven't got any rudder in, push it down a little to get some steering. It's usually easier to put the daggerboard in when you're in the boat, and you shouldn't drift too much if you're fairly quick. When it's deep enough, put your rudder down fully and you're ready to go. Return to the beach on a beam reach or a close reach. If you approach from too far upwind, it will be harder to slow down. As you get closer, ease the sheet out so your sail starts flapping and the boat will slow down. Pull the daggerboard up halfway and bring your rudder up so there's only just enough in the water. Turning the boat towards the wind will help to slow down, and as long as you don't tack, you'll drift sideways into the beach. Pull your daggerboard out early as you don't need it anymore and get out when you reach shallow water. Hold the boat by the bow to keep it under control while you get the trolley in the other hand. Trying to hold the boat at the back when it's floating freely will cause it to bear away, power up and possibly capsize on the beach. Guide the boat onto the trolley and tie it up, pointing it upwind the whole time. We'll look at how to tie the boat onto the trolley later on. With your boat back on the trolley, pull the boat far enough up the beach that it will stay put. You can now pull the rudder all the way up or take it off. Using a painter will allow you to hold the boat further away from you. This means you don't have to drop the trolley in the water, and some well-timed pulls can steer the boat around effectively. It's easier to keep the boat flat if you're holding the boat by its hull though, especially with higher performance dinghies that have less stability. An onshore wind blows straight onto the beach and can make it hard to sail away. It can also be tricky to get back in under control. We'll look at getting out first and then a couple of options for returning to the shore. Here we can see that most of the water is in our no-go zone, so there are only a few options to leave the beach. We are aiming to get into deep water as quickly and easily as possible, so we can ask ourselves a few questions to make our plan. Is there a favoured tack? If the wind is not blowing directly onto the beach, one tack will take us away from a beach at a steeper angle than the other, like this. Both arrows represent the close hauled course possible on each tack. You can see that sailing on port tack is getting us into deeper water more quickly. Can we move to an easier spot on a beach? Unless the beach is very straight and exactly square to the wind, there will usually be one part or end of a launching area which is easier than the others. For example, moving to this small spit or outcrop is taking us further upwind and increases the area that we can sail into when we launch. Don't make things hard for yourself on the water by launching at the most convenient point on the shore. How much time and distance have you got when you set off? For example, if we sail away on starboard tack here, we're very quickly going to need to tack before we run into the beach. Setting off on port tack will give us much more time and room to sail into deeper water and get organised before we hit anything. We need to consider all these variables together when deciding how best to leave the beach. Take a moment to plan what you're doing so you get it right the first time, or you'll be blown straight back onto the beach. Let's see it in practice. To keep the boat head to wind, it will need to be launched bow first. This also means the sailor will need to go further out to get the boat to float off the trolley. Before launching, tidy the boat up to make sure there are no tangles in the sheet. This is much easier to do whilst the boat is still on the trolley. I also put a little rudder down so that I don't have to come to the back of the boat once it's floating. In this case, I pull the boat forwards off the trolley to avoid pushing the stern of the boat back into the beach. By keeping your hand on the trolley, you know where it is to avoid scratching the boat. Also, it helps to pull most of the slack out of the mainsheet to avoid it catching on the trolley uprights. You could also just go deeper and then float the boat off backwards. It's harder to get the trolley as far up the beach here because you need to hold the back of the boat from running aground. As an absolute minimum, make sure that the trolley handle and uprights are clearly visible to others. At this point, our plan is based on the previous 3 questions. Look at the boom. The wind is not blowing directly onto the shore, and it looks to be slightly favourable to leave the beach on starboard tack heading to the left of the screen. However, there's a pontoon just along the beach and there is a lot more space to go the other way, so we'll leave on port tack. Prepare the boat to start sailing as soon as you get in to avoid drifting back onto the beach. Pull all the slack out of the mainsheet. Put the daggerboard in halfway. With tiller and mainsheet in hand, a push can help to get the boat moving and bear away a bit to power up the sail. With very little rudder in the water, keeping a boat dead flat or heeled slightly to windward will help to keep the boat straight. Keep going until you've got into deep enough water, then go a little further to allow a bit of room to drift while you put your rudder down and the rest of your board. Get going again quickly to sail into deeper water and away from the shore. There are a couple of options for returning to the shore. The difficulty here is that it's hard to slow down with the wind behind us. To depower the sail, we will normally need to turn the boat around onto a close reach, therefore pointing away from the beach. With an onshore wind, the boat should easily drift in the right direction though. So, sail towards the beach, turn towards the wind before it gets too shallow, pull your board out and you can drift onto the beach at a manageable speed. Just like heading away from a beach, there might be a preferred tack to return to the beach. Here, approaching on starboard tack requires a small turn towards the wind before the sail will depower. Coming in on port tack, the wind is much further behind the boat, so we have to make a bigger turn away from the beach before the sail will depower. Getting the daggerboard and rudder up in good time reduces the chance of running up a beach. With a little bit of rudder still in the water, we can keep the rudder to leeward to drift sideways, or straighten up a bit if we want the boat to bear away and move forwards a little. We can control the drift to land exactly where we want to get out. Having a rope tied to the trolley can help to get hold of it from a short distance away. This can be particularly useful if you're launching on tidal water, where a falling tide will leave your trolley further away from the water. Another option is available if you're sailing a boat with an unstayed rig, i.e. one that doesn't have shrouds, like a laser or topper. When you're directly upwind of a beach, untie the stopper knot in the mainsheet to allow the sail to go completely forwards of a mast. The boat can point straight at the beach without powering up the sail. When you get close to the beach, turning sideways to the wind will help to slow the boat down, drifting sideways again into the shallower water. In a double-hander, you can take a similar approach by dropping a mainsail, sailing in by jib alone, and then letting it go or furling it when you want to slow down. An offshore wind can be deceiving because we are at the most sheltered area of the water and it can look calm and flat. It's easy to get out because we can sail away from a beach in any direction. It can be hard to get back in because the beach is in our no-go zone. We have to sail upwind and the wind might be disturbed by trees and buildings. Make sure you're confident that you can get back in before you set off. Pushing a launching trolley up the beach is easy here because the boat is blowing away from it. To set off, you can just get in the boat and drift out into deeper water, then put your rudder and daggerboard down. Here, I've got the tiller to the leeward side to help the boat drift sideways and avoid powering up the sail. The boat would be quite unstable if you tried to sail straight downwind without your board and rudder in, so this is an easy and controlled way to leave the shore. To return to the shore, we need to sail upwind, keeping the boat moving as much as possible. Here, the daggerboard comes up as it starts to get shallow, and good forward speed will help the reduced amount of board to work better. As it gets shallower still, the rudder comes up and we need to keep the boat flat to help steer it straight. Pull the board out before you hit the bottom and then get out of the boat straight away before it starts drifting away from the beach again. Tying your boat onto the trolley is similar to tying to a cleat. Make a few number 8s back and forth before tucking the loose end under itself to tie it off. Subscribe with notifications on to be kept up to date. Have a look around the channel for more sailing tips.